I moved in with my sister and her husband to escape my parents. I caught him watching me at the pool. When I got a date, he exploded and said, "What about us?" I'm Becca, 16F, and I've been living with my older sister Susan, 24F, and her husband Tom, 33M, for about 3 months now. Susan pretty much raised me since our parents were never really around much. They were always fighting or busy with their own problems. Susan stepped up when I was little and made sure I had what I needed. She helped me with homework, cooked meals, and was the one who showed up to my school events. When Susan went to college, she would call me all the time to check on me. I called her at least twice a week too. She would tell me about her classes, her part-time job, and then later about this guy she met named Tom. The way she talked about him made him sound perfect. She told me how he brought her flowers just because, took her to nice places, and treated her really well. After seeing how our parents treated each other, it made me think that good relationships actually existed. Susan and Tom got engaged after she graduated, and they got married 2 years ago. I went to all their important events and got to know Tom pretty well. He seemed like a good guy, and I looked up to him like an older brother. He always had jokes and brought presents when they visited. He seemed to make Susan happy, and that was what mattered to me. 3 months ago, things went bad at home. My parents told me I needed to start paying rent if I wanted to keep living there. I had a job at a horse ranch that I really loved. I got to work with the horses, take free riding lessons, and the owners were really nice to me. The problem was the pay wasn't great, and if I paid what my parents wanted, I wouldn't have money for anything else. I would have needed a second job, which would mean quitting the ranch. I told Susan about the situation during one of our calls. She talked to Tom and they offered to let me move in with them until I finished high school. They had a spare room and Tom worked from home for his family's business, so someone would always be around. I was so grateful that I cried. When I moved in, Susan and Tom told me they had some big news. Susan was pregnant. I was so excited for them. Susan explained that she had lost 2 pregnancies before, so this one was high risk. The doctor had told her to avoid stress and take it easy. My car situation got complicated right after I moved in. The car I had been using belonged to my parents, and they took it back when I moved out. I didn't mind walking, but the ranch was pretty far from their house. Tom insisted on driving me to school and work. He said it wasn't a problem since he worked from home and could make his own schedule. Every day, Tom would go to the gym in the morning, come back and shower, and then drive me to school with a Starbucks drink he picked up for me. Then he would pick me up from school and take me to work, and pick me up after my shift ended. I was really thankful for all the driving he did for me. During our car rides, we talked about lots of things. Tom asked a lot of questions about my friends at school and if I was dating anyone. At first, it seemed like normal conversation, but he kept bringing it up every single day. He would wink and say I must be hiding something, that he could keep secrets, and that I should tell him about any boys I liked. I tried to be vague because I didn't want to talk about it. There was this guy at the ranch, Mark, 18M, whose family owned the place. We had started talking more, riding horses together, and I liked him, but I didn't want to jinx anything by talking about it too much. I also didn't want to lie straight to Tom's face, so I just kept my answers short. Looking back, there were other things that I didn't think much about at the time. Tom was often outside when I used the pool in the backyard. He would find reasons to be out there, grilling, yard work, sometimes joining me for a swim. At the time, I just thought he was being nice or doing chores. Another thing I noticed was that sometimes when I came out of the bathroom at night, I used the hallway bathroom since Susan and Tom had their own. Tom would be in the hallway as I walked to my room wrapped in a towel. He would say goodnight, and I would say it back. It happened enough times that I started to wonder why he was always there at that exact time. Everything changed last week. Mark asked me if I wanted to go on a date with him that weekend. I was really excited and told Tom about it on the car ride home from work. As soon as I mentioned the date, Tom's whole attitude changed. The warmth in his voice disappeared, and he got really quiet. Then he started asking questions about Mark in a flat voice. I thought maybe he was just being protective, like an older brother would be. But when I mentioned that Mark and I had been talking for about a month, Tom completely lost it. He started yelling, calling me a liar and saying I had been hiding things from him on purpose. I started crying because he was so angry. Then he asked something that really confused me. He said, "What about us?" I had no idea what he meant by that. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time since moving in. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything, the pool, the hallway, the questions about boys, and wondered if I had missed some signs. Was Tom interested in me in a way that he shouldn't be? The thought made me sick. I knew I couldn't tell Susan about this. Her pregnancy was already high risk, and I was worried that this kind of stress could harm her or the baby. I didn't want to be responsible for that. But I also didn't know if I was overreacting or if my concerns were valid. The next day, I tried to avoid being alone with Tom. I asked a friend if she could give me a ride to work after school. I told her my normal ride fell through. I texted Susan saying I would be home late because I was helping out with extra tasks at the ranch. When I got home that evening, Tom was waiting in the living room. He asked where I had been, and why I hadn't let him pick me up. I told him about the extra work and thanked him for always driving me, but said my friend offered to help out sometimes. He stared at me for a long time without saying anything, then went to the bedroom where Susan was resting. That weekend, I made sure to stay in my room or be with Susan when Tom was around. I could feel him watching me. Twice he tried to talk to me alone, but I made excuses about homework or calls I needed to make. On Sunday night, I felt like I was suffocating in the house. Susan was asleep, and Tom was in his home office. I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. There was a spot about 15 minutes away where I sometimes went to think. I left quietly and sent Susan a text saying I went for a quick walk and would be back soon. I had been sitting at my thinking spot for maybe 10 minutes when my phone started buzzing with texts from Tom asking where I was. Before I could even reply, he started calling repeatedly. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even press the button to decline the calls. Eventually I answered, and he immediately started yelling, calling me a stupid princess and worse names. He demanded that I send him my location. I refused and told him to calm down. As soon as I hung up, I called Mark. I was crying so hard I could barely speak, but I managed to tell him where I was. He said he would come right away. While I waited, Tom kept calling. Then I got a call from Susan's phone. I answered thinking it might be her, but it was Tom again, still yelling and calling me names. Mark had just arrived and heard Tom through the phone. He took it from me, told Tom that I was safe and to stop calling, then hung up. Mark drove me to the ranch. He told his parents what happened, and they offered to let me stay in their guest room. They said I could work more hours at the ranch to pay for room and board. I was so grateful that I couldn't even find the words to thank them. That night, Mark stayed with me until I fell asleep. The next morning, I was too exhausted to go to school. I kept thinking about Susan, wondering if she was okay and if she knew what had happened. Around noon, I called her. She answered on the first ring. I could tell she had been crying. She asked if I was okay, and then told me what had happened from her side. She said she woke up to Tom yelling the night before but pretended to be asleep. She heard him take her phone and leave the house. When he came back later, she asked him what was going on, and he exploded at her too, breaking a chair and punching a hole in the wall. She said she had never seen him that angry before. He left again after that. When he was gone, she found her phone, saw the calls to me, and called a friend to pick her up. She tried calling me after she left, but I was already asleep by then. I told her I was sorry for not saying anything sooner. I explained that I was worried about her pregnancy and didn't want to cause her any stress. We both cried on the phone. She told me she had moved back in with our parents, who surprisingly offered to let her stay rent-free to help with the baby. It was ironic. If they had made the same offer to me 3 months ago, none of this would have happened. I've been staying at the ranch for a week now. Mark's parents have been extremely kind, and I'm working extra hours to earn my keep. Mark and I are taking things slow, but it's nice to have someone who makes me feel safe. I don't know what will happen next with Susan and Tom, but I'm just glad we're both away from him now. Thank you for reading all of this. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1: It's been 2 weeks since everything happened, and a lot has changed. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice meant a lot to me during such a difficult time. Susan and I met for lunch last week. She looked tired but determined. We talked for hours, catching up on everything that had happened since that night. She told me that she had filed for a restraining order against Tom after he kept showing up at our parents' house trying to talk to her. According to Susan, he was apologetic at first, claiming he was just worried about my safety when I went for that walk at night. But when she told him she knew what he had said to me on the phone, he changed his story. Tom started telling Susan that I had been flirting with him for weeks, and that I was making up stories to cause problems in their marriage. He said I was jealous of their relationship and the baby. Susan didn't believe him. She said the way he exploded that night showed his true character, and she wasn't going to let him manipulate her. What really shocked me was when Susan revealed that Tom had been controlling in ways I never noticed. She wasn't allowed to go out with friends without him. He checked her phone regularly and questioned her about every text and call. He even monitored how much she spent and where. She said she had convinced herself it was normal because he always framed it as concern for her well-being. The restraining order was granted after Susan showed the judge the texts Tom had sent her after she left. She didn't tell me exactly what they said, but from her expression, I could tell they were bad. The judge ordered Tom to stay at least 100 yards away from Susan and me. We also made a plan to get our belongings from the house. Susan's friend Melissa's husband works as a security guard, and he agreed to come with us along with my dad. We set a date when we knew Tom would be at a work meeting. The day we went to get our things was tense. We arrived early, used Susan's key, and worked quickly. Dad and Melissa's husband stood watch while Susan and I packed our essentials. We took only what was clearly ours: clothes, personal items, documents. Susan left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note telling Tom her lawyer would contact him about the divorce. We were almost finished when Tom's car pulled into the driveway. My stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. Dad and Melissa's husband immediately went outside to intercept him, reminding him about the restraining order. From the window, I could see Tom gesturing angrily, but he stayed by his car. Susan and I finished packing as fast as we could and loaded everything into our vehicles. As we drove away, I saw Tom watching us from the driveway. The look on his face sent chills down my spine. It wasn't sadness or regret, it was rage barely contained. That night, Tom sent Susan an email. She forwarded it to me. He wrote that he had proof I had been acting inappropriately with him and that he would show everyone if she went through with the divorce. Susan replied that any proof he had was manipulated or taken out of context, and that his threats were just confirming she was making the right decision. The next day, Susan started getting calls from mutual friends saying Tom had contacted them. He was telling people that Susan had abandoned him during a difficult time and that I had caused problems in their marriage. Some friends believed him, but others were skeptical, especially those who had seen his controlling behavior firsthand. One of Susan's college friends, Amber, told her that Tom had always given her a bad feeling. Amber revealed that when Susan and Tom first started dating, Tom had asked Amber personal questions about Susan and suggested they share information about her. Amber had been uncomfortable and distanced herself, which was why she and Susan hadn't been as close in recent years. Susan was devastated to learn how Tom had systematically isolated her from her friends. She spent hours calling people she had lost touch with, rebuilding connections that had been damaged by Tom's interference. Meanwhile, I continued staying at the ranch with Mark's family. Mrs. Johnson, Mark's mom, has been amazing. She told me I can stay as long as I need to and not to worry about paying for everything right away. I've been working extra shifts and helping around the house to show my appreciation. Mark and I went on our first official date last weekend. We went horseback riding to a spot overlooking the valley and had a picnic. It was simple and perfect. Mark has been incredibly patient and understanding about everything that happened. He never pushes me to talk about it, but he listens when I need to. School has been challenging. Rumors spread quickly in small towns, and some versions of what happened have made their way around. A few people have asked me directly about living with Mark's family, and I've just said that there were problems at home. I don't want to share the full story with everyone. My parents have been surprisingly supportive of Susan, letting her use their spare room without charging rent. They've even started helping her prepare for the baby, buying supplies and fixing up the room. It's a side of them I haven't seen in years. Mom told me I could move back too, but I'm doing well at the ranch for now, and it's closer to school and work. Susan had her 16-week checkup yesterday, and the baby is doing fine despite all the stress. The doctor said Susan needs to keep her blood pressure down, so she's focusing on staying calm and healthy. She started prenatal yoga and meditation to help manage her anxiety. Tom has made a few attempts to contact me directly, sending messages through school friends or calling from unknown numbers. I've blocked every new number and told my friends not to pass along any messages. The school counselor is aware of the situation and has been helpful in making sure Tom can't come to the school. Susan met with a divorce lawyer who specializes in high conflict cases. The lawyer advised her to document everything and avoid direct contact with Tom. All communication now goes through their lawyers. The process will take time, but Susan is determined to get through it. I still have nightmares about that night sometimes. In my dreams, I'm walking alone and hear footsteps behind me, but when I turn around, no one is there. Then I hear Tom's voice asking, "What about us?" I usually wake up in a cold sweat. Mrs. Johnson gave me a dream catcher to hang above my bed. I don't think it actually works, but the gesture means a lot. Susan and I talk every day now. We've promised to be completely honest with each other, no matter how difficult the truth might be. She told me she feels guilty for not seeing the signs earlier, but I reminded her that Tom fooled everyone, not just her. Next week, Susan and I are meeting with a victim advocate to discuss our options and resources. The advocate reached out after the restraining order was filed, offering support services. Susan was hesitant at first, but I convinced her that getting professional advice couldn't hurt. That's where things stand now. Tom is still spreading his version of events, Susan is moving forward with the divorce, and I'm trying to find a new normal. I'll update again when there are significant developments. Update 2: It's been a month since my last update, and the situation has developed in ways I never expected. I want to thank everyone who has reached out with support and advice. The biggest news is that Susan lost the baby last week. She was 20 weeks along and had just found out she was having a boy. She started having cramping and bleeding and went to the emergency room, but it was too late. The doctors said sometimes these things happen and there's nothing that could have been done, but Susan blames the stress from everything with Tom. Susan has been staying with our parents, and I've been spending more time there to support her. She's physically recovering, but emotionally it's been devastating. Our mom has stepped up in a way I never expected, taking time off work to be with Susan and actually acting like a mother for once. 2 weeks ago, before the miscarriage, we received some disturbing news. A woman named Rachel contacted Susan through social media. She said she was Tom's ex-girlfriend from 6 years ago, before he met Susan. Rachel had seen some posts from mutual friends about the divorce and wanted to warn Susan. According to Rachel, Tom had been controlling and manipulative with her too. When she tried to break up with him, he threatened to release private photos of her to her family and workplace. She ended up getting a restraining order against him, which is why they broke up. Rachel sent Susan copies of the court documents to prove she was telling the truth. Susan and I were shocked. This pattern of behavior went back years before Susan even met Tom. Rachel also mentioned that Tom had been fixated on her younger sister, who was 17 at the time. He would ask Rachel to include her sister in their outings and get angry when Rachel refused. Susan forwarded all the information to her lawyer, who is using it to build a case for the divorce proceedings. The lawyer said this establishes a pattern of behavior that strengthens Susan's position. Tom hasn't given up trying to contact us. Last week, he showed up at the ranch asking to speak with me. Fortunately, I wasn't there, but Mr. Johnson told him to leave immediately or he would call the police for violating the restraining order. Tom left but sent me an email later claiming he just wanted to clear the air and that everyone was misunderstanding his intentions. Mark has been incredibly supportive through all of this. He drives me to visit Susan every day after work and waits patiently, never rushing me. His parents have told me I can stay with them as long as I need to, and they've even helped me set up a small savings account where I put some of my earnings each week. They're teaching me about budgeting and planning for the future, things my own parents never did. School has been a mixed experience. Some friends have been understanding and supportive, but others have fallen for Tom's version of events. He's been telling people that I made up stories about him because I was angry he set boundaries about my behavior in his house. A few girls I thought were friends now give me cold looks in the hallway. I try to ignore it and focus on my studies and the people who know the truth. Susan's divorce proceedings are moving forward. The court date is set for next month. Her lawyer is confident that with the restraining order, Rachel's testimony, and documentation of Tom's behavior, Susan will get a favorable settlement. Tom has been ordered to continue paying the mortgage on the house until the court decides how to divide their assets. The victim advocate we met with has been a tremendous help. She connected Susan with a support group for women going through similar situations, and she helped me find a teen group that meets weekly to discuss family problems and coping strategies. At first, I didn't want to go, but after the first meeting, I realized how helpful it was to talk to other teens who understood complicated family situations. Last weekend, something unexpected happened. Tom's mother called Susan. She apologized for her son's behavior and said she had seen signs of his controlling nature over the years but had made excuses for him. She told Susan that Tom had always been possessive, even as a child, and that she and her husband had taken him to therapy when he was younger, but stopped when he seemed to improve. She offered to testify on Susan's behalf if needed, which could be crucial for the divorce case. I've been having fewer nightmares, but I still get anxious when I'm alone in public places. Mark taught me some basic self-defense moves, which helps me feel more confident. The ranch has become a safe haven for me. Working with the horses is therapeutic, and the physical labor helps me sleep better at night. Susan is talking about moving to a different town once the divorce is finalized. She has a job offer from a company about an hour away and thinks a fresh start might be good for her. She asked if I would consider coming with her after I graduate next year. I'm not sure yet. I found something special with Mark and at the ranch, but I also want to support my sister. It's a decision I don't have to make immediately. Tom sent a large flower arrangement to our parents' house for Susan after he heard about the miscarriage. There was a card saying he was sorry for her loss and that he still wanted to work things out. Susan threw the flowers in the trash without a second thought. She said any man who could terrorize his wife's teenage sister and then try to blame her for problems in the marriage doesn't deserve a second chance. The police called Susan yesterday because Tom was spotted driving slowly by our parents' house, which violates the restraining order. They increased patrols in the neighborhood but couldn't arrest him without direct evidence. We've all been extra cautious, making sure doors and windows are locked and not going anywhere alone. That's where things stand now. Susan is healing physically and trying to cope with the loss of the baby while preparing for her court date. I'm settling into my new routine at the ranch and working on finishing the school year strong. Our parents seem to be stepping up, finally supporting us when we need them most. And Tom continues to hover at the edges of our lives, a threat we can't quite escape yet. I'll update again after the court date, or sooner if anything significant happens. Thank you all for your continued support and advice. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I'm happy to say that this will be my final post about this situation. So much has happened, and most of it has been positive. The divorce between Susan and Tom was finalized last month. The judge granted Susan a permanent restraining order after reviewing all the evidence, including Rachel's testimony and documentation from Tom's mother about his history of controlling behavior. Tom was ordered to pay alimony for 1 year and to sell the house and split the proceeds. The most shocking development came during the court proceedings. Tom's lawyer presented evidence that I had been inappropriate with Tom, some photos of me by the pool and texts that Tom claimed I had sent him. The judge quickly determined that the texts were fabricated, and the photos had been taken without my knowledge while I was swimming at their house. This actually backfired on Tom, as it proved I was telling the truth about him watching me. The judge referred the matter to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges for creating false evidence and invasion of privacy. 2 weeks ago, Tom was arrested for violating the restraining order again. He was found parked outside Susan's new apartment building at 2 a.m. Because this was his third violation, he's facing actual jail time. His court date is next month, and both Susan and I will testify. Susan has moved to the next town over, about 30 minutes away. She found a nice one-bedroom apartment and started a new job as an office manager for a local business. The company has been very understanding about her situation and allows flexible hours so she can attend therapy and court dates as needed. She's also joined a support group for women who have experienced similar relationships, which has been incredibly helpful for her. I'm still living at the ranch with Mark's family. My parents offered to let me move back home without paying rent, but I declined. The stability and support I've found with the Johnsons has been life-changing. Mrs. Johnson has become a mentor to me, teaching me about horse breeding and business management. Mr. Johnson is helping me apply for college scholarships, focusing on schools with good equine programs. Mark and I have been dating officially for 4 months now. He's patient and kind, never pushing me beyond my comfort zone. We've talked about the future, about college and careers, and while we're taking things day by day, I can see a potential long-term relationship developing. I graduated high school last month. Susan, my parents, and the Johnsons all attended the ceremony. It was the first time in years that my parents put aside their differences for a family occasion. They've been making an effort to rebuild relationships with both Susan and me. My mom even apologized for not being more present during our childhood and for putting Susan in the position of raising me. I'm not ready to forgive everything, but it's a start. The police called last week to inform us that Tom has agreed to a plea deal for the restraining order violations. He'll serve 30 days in county jail, followed by 2 years of probation and mandatory counseling. While it's not a long sentence, it's a relief to know there will be consequences for his actions and that his behavior will be monitored going forward. Susan has started dating again, very cautiously. She met a man through her support group's facilitator. He works as a counselor and understands the trauma she's been through. They've been on a few coffee dates, and Susan says it's refreshing to be with someone who respects her boundaries without being asked. As for me, I've been accepted to a college about an hour from the ranch with a strong agricultural program. I received a partial scholarship, and between that, my savings from working at the ranch, and a small contribution from my parents, I should be able to afford the first year without taking out too many loans. Mark is planning to attend the same school, studying business management so he can eventually take over his family's ranch operations. The teen support group I joined has become an important part of my life. I've made friends who understand complicated family dynamics, and we help each other navigate difficult situations. The group leader suggested I might consider becoming a peer counselor after I've been in the program longer, which is something I'm seriously considering. The nightmares have mostly stopped. I still get anxious sometimes, especially in situations that remind me of that night with Tom, but it's getting better. A technique the group leader taught me, focusing on concrete objects around me and naming them, helps ground me when anxiety starts to rise. Susan and I talk every day, either by phone or text. Our relationship has grown stronger through this experience. We've promised to always be honest with each other and to never let anyone come between us again. Susan tells me she's proud of how I handled everything and that I'm stronger than she was at my age. Tom's mother still reaches out occasionally to check on Susan. She sent a nice card for my graduation with a gift card inside. She wrote that she admires my resilience and hopes I know that none of what happened was my fault. It was unexpected but appreciated. The Johnsons have become like a second family to me. They included me in their family vacation last month, a week at a horse show in a neighboring state. Mrs. Johnson introduced me to some professional trainers she knows, and one offered me a part-time job during college breaks. The connections and opportunities I've found through them have opened doors I never knew existed. Looking back on everything that happened, I realize how lucky I was to get out of that house when I did. Tom's behavior was escalating, and I shudder to think what might have happened if I had stayed longer. I'm grateful for Mark, for his family, for Susan's strength, and even for my parents' belated support. Life isn't perfect, Susan still grieves for her lost baby, I still have moments of anxiety, and we know Tom will eventually be free again, but we're moving forward. We've learned to recognize warning signs in relationships, to trust our instincts, and to value people who respect boundaries. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I refused to pay for my sister's lavish destination wedding. Then she faked a pregnancy to guilt trip me, but the truth came out. I'm Mia, 24F, and I've always had a complicated relationship with my older sister Chloe, 29F. To understand the current situation, I need to give you some background on our family dynamics. Our parents, Robert, 58M, and Linda, 56F, built a successful real estate business from the ground up. They came from humble beginnings and worked incredibly hard to provide us with a comfortable life. Growing up, we never wanted for anything, but our parents always emphasized the importance of hard work and financial independence. Chloe and I are polar opposites. She's always been the free spirit, creative, spontaneous, and charismatic. I'm more practical and reserved. As kids, Chloe was the life of every party, while I preferred curling up with a good book. Our differences often led to clashes, but there were good times too. I remember how Chloe would help me build elaborate blanket forts and defend them against imaginary monsters. However, as we grew older, the gap between us widened. In high school, Chloe was popular and outgoing, constantly surrounded by friends. I was more focused on my studies and had a smaller, tight-knit group of friends. Chloe started pushing boundaries, staying out late, skipping classes, and getting into minor trouble. Our parents, especially Mom, often brushed it off as Chloe being Chloe. When it came time for college, I had my heart set on studying computer science at a prestigious university. It was expensive, but I was determined to make it work. I applied for scholarships, took out student loans, and worked part-time jobs throughout my degree. It was tough, but I was proud of my independence. Chloe, on the other hand, announced that she wanted to take a gap year to find herself. Our parents were hesitant but eventually agreed, thinking it would help her figure out her path. That gap year turned into 2, then 3. Chloe bounced around Europe and Southeast Asia, posting glamorous photos on social media and assuring our parents she was discovering her passion. During this time, I was juggling classes, internships, and part-time work. I'd call home exhausted, only to hear about Chloe's latest adventure. It was hard not to feel a twinge of resentment, especially when I'd overhear my parents discussing how much money they were sending Chloe for her travels. After graduating, I landed a job at a tech startup. The pay was good, but between rent in a high-cost city and my student loan payments, I was far from wealthy. Meanwhile, Chloe had returned home and was living with our parents, talking about starting a travel blog or becoming a yoga instructor. She'd pick up odd jobs here and there but nothing stable. Last Christmas, things came to a head when Chloe announced she was going to Bali for a spiritual retreat. I couldn't hold back anymore and asked how she was funding this trip. Chloe got defensive, and we had a huge argument. Our parents tried to mediate, but it was clear they were still enabling Chloe's lifestyle. I left the family gathering early, feeling frustrated and unheard. Now, fast forward to last month. Chloe called a family meeting to announce her engagement to Derek, 32M, a guy she met while bartending in Bali. They'd been together for 6 months, and Chloe was over the moon. She started gushing about her plans for a destination wedding in Santorini, Greece. I bit my tongue, not wanting to dampen her excitement, but I couldn't help wondering how she planned to pay for it all. A week later, my parents called another family meeting. They looked stressed and explained that they've been hit hard by some recent investments gone wrong. Dad admitted he'd made some risky moves in an attempt to expand the business, and it had backfired spectacularly. They were okay for day-to-day expenses but couldn't afford to fund Chloe's wedding. Chloe's face fell, and she started tearing up, saying her dream wedding was ruined. Then, to my absolute shock, my parents turned to me. Mom said, "Mia, honey, we know you're doing well in your job. We were hoping you might be able to chip in for your sister's special day." I was floored. They weren't asking for a small contribution. They wanted me to cover almost 70% of the wedding costs, which would amount to around $30,000. I immediately said no. I explained that I'm still paying off my student loans and saving for my own future. Plus, I don't even agree with the idea of such an expensive wedding for a 6-month relationship. Chloe exploded. "You've always been jealous of me," she screamed. "You can't stand to see me happy." She accused me of being selfish and said I've never supported her dreams. My parents didn't exactly side with her, but they didn't defend me either. Dad said I should be more generous since I have a high-paying job. Mom brought up how they've always supported us and now it's my turn to support the family. I stood my ground and refused. I reminded them of how hard I've worked for everything I have, while Chloe has been living off their generosity for years. I told them it's not my responsibility to fund Chloe's lifestyle choices. The meeting ended with Chloe storming out and my parents giving me disappointed looks. Since then, I've been getting passive-aggressive messages from Chloe. She's posted vague statuses on social media about unsupportive family members and how some people don't understand the importance of family. Several relatives have reached out, asking what's wrong and why I'm not helping my sister. My parents have been calling daily, alternating between guilt-tripping and trying to negotiate. Mom keeps bringing up childhood memories, like how Chloe helped me overcome my fear of swimming. Dad has tried appealing to my practical side, suggesting I consider it an investment in family bonds. I feel like I'm going crazy. On one hand, I love my family and want them to be happy. I have fond memories of Chloe and me as kids, before all this drama. Part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. But on the other hand, I've worked so hard to be financially responsible, and it feels unfair to be expected to foot the bill for Chloe's extravagance. Last night, I got a call from my childhood best friend, Sarah. She's known our family for years and has seen the dynamics play out. She reassured me that I'm not in the wrong and reminded me of all the times Chloe's irresponsibility has caused family tension. It was comforting to have someone validate my feelings, but I'm still torn. I can't help but think about the future. If I give in now, will I be expected to bail Chloe out every time she's in a bind? What about when our parents retire? Will I be solely responsible for their care because I'm the successful one? These thoughts keep me up at night. I'm standing firm in my decision for now, but the constant guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation are getting to me. I've started to distance myself from family gatherings to avoid the drama, which only leads to more accusations of me being unsupportive. Am I really the asshole for not wanting to spend my hard-earned money on my sister's extravagant wedding? Am I missing something here, or am I right to stand my ground? Edit. Thank you all for your responses. I'm overwhelmed by the support. To address some common questions, yes, I've always had a strained relationship with Chloe. Growing up, she was the golden child who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. My parents have a history of enabling Chloe's behavior. They paid for her gap year, which turned into gap years. They've bailed her out of credit card debt multiple times. I love my sister, but I don't approve of this rushed marriage. Derek seems nice enough, but they barely know each other. My parents aren't completely broke, but they've lost a significant portion of their savings in some risky investments. They can still contribute to the wedding, just not as much as Chloe wants. I've offered to help Chloe plan a more modest wedding, but she's adamant about the Santorini plan. I'll post an update if anything significant happens. Update 1. It's been about 3 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank you all for your support and advice. Your comments really helped me feel less crazy and gave me the strength to stand my ground. A week after the family meeting, I was at home after a long day at work when there was an unexpected knock on my door. To my surprise, it was Chloe. She looked tired and a bit disheveled, very different from her usual put-together self. For a moment, I flashed back to when we were kids and she'd come to my room after a nightmare, seeking comfort. I hesitated but then invited her in. Chloe started by apologizing for her outburst at the family meeting. She admitted she was stressed about the wedding and took it out on me. For a moment, I thought we were making progress. I even started to feel a bit guilty about being so firm. But then she launched into a sob story about how she's always dreamed of a fairy tale wedding and how crushed she'd be if she couldn't have it in Santorini. I tried to be sympathetic but firm. I reminded her of the beautiful weddings our cousins had had locally, suggesting she could have something equally special without the extravagant cost. I even offered to help her research venues and vendors to find good deals. Chloe wasn't having it. She kept insisting that nothing but Santorini would do. Then she dropped a bombshell: she's pregnant. She said she and Derek want to get married before she starts showing, which is why they're rushing. My mind was reeling. I congratulated her, of course, but I couldn't help but wonder about the timing of this revelation. I tried to gently suggest that maybe a baby on the way was even more reason to be financially prudent. I talked about how expensive raising a child can be and how a modest wedding now could mean more resources for the baby later. Chloe's demeanor quickly changed. She accused me of being heartless and said I'd regret not being there for her in her time of need. As she was leaving, Chloe threatened that if I didn't help with the wedding, I wouldn't be welcome in her or her baby's life. The word stung, bringing back memories of childhood squabbles where Chloe would threaten to not be my friend anymore if I didn't do what she wanted. But this time, the stakes felt so much higher. The next day, my parents called. They'd heard about Chloe's pregnancy and were doubling down on pressuring me to pay for the wedding. Mom was crying, saying she always dreamed of planning her daughter's weddings and now everything was falling apart. Dad took a different approach, talking about family legacy and how important it is for the baby to be born to married parents. They argued that it's even more important now to have a proper wedding before the baby comes. I stood my ground, but it was hard. I suggested again that we could plan a beautiful local wedding quickly and affordably. My parents accused me of not understanding the importance of family traditions. It was frustrating because I do value family. I just don't think throwing money we don't have at a lavish wedding is the way to show it. Things escalated when Chloe posted a vague, emotional status on social media about unsupportive family members and how some people don't understand the importance of family. She didn't name me, but it was clear who she was talking about. Several relatives and family friends have since reached out, asking what's wrong and why I'm not helping my pregnant sister. My Aunt Susan, who's always been a bit of a pot stirrer, called me directly. She berated me for not stepping up, saying things like, "Family is all we have in this world, and you'll regret this when you're older." I tried to explain my side, but she wasn't interested in listening. The constant barrage of guilt and emotional manipulation was starting to get to me. I found myself lying awake at night, second-guessing my decision. Was I being too harsh? Should I just give in to keep the peace? The thought of missing my sister's wedding and potentially being cut out of my future niece or nephew's life was heartbreaking. I started to distance myself from family gatherings to avoid the drama. This only led to more accusations of me being unsupportive and selfish. It felt like a lose-lose situation. On a slightly positive note, my younger cousin Emma, 22F, reached out to offer support. She's always seen through Chloe's antics and reminded me of some of Chloe's past manipulative behaviors that I'd almost forgotten about. It was reassuring to know that at least one family member understood my perspective. I also had a long talk with my best friend Sarah. She suggested I write out all my feelings in a letter to my family, not to send, but just to clarify my thoughts. It was a helpful exercise and made me realize how much pent-up frustration I've been carrying about our family dynamics for years. At work, my performance has started to suffer. My boss pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay, as I've been distracted and making uncharacteristic mistakes. I gave her a vague explanation about family stress. She was understanding but reminded me of some important upcoming deadlines. The added work stress isn't helping the situation. I'm still processing everything and trying to navigate this family storm. Part of me wants to just give in and pay for the wedding to make it all go away. But a stronger part knows that would be a mistake, not just financially, but in terms of setting boundaries for the future. For now, I'm trying to take care of myself. I've started going on long walks in the evenings to clear my head and have been looking into local support groups for people dealing with difficult family situations. I'm also considering seeing a therapist to help me work through all these complicated emotions. I'm still firm in my decision not to pay for the wedding, but I'm struggling with the potential long-term consequences for my family relationships. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Update 2. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and the situation has taken some unexpected turns. First, the wedding drama came to a head when Chloe announced on social media that she and Derek were postponing the wedding indefinitely due to family issues. She didn't name me, but it was clear who she was blaming. The post got a lot of sympathy comments, and I received a fresh wave of messages from family members urging me to reconcile with Chloe. I was at my wit's end, constantly second-guessing my decisions and feeling like the black sheep of the family. I threw myself into work, often staying late at the office just to avoid going home to an empty apartment and my thoughts. But here's where it gets interesting. Last week, I was working late when I got an unexpected call from Derek. He apologized for reaching out behind Chloe's back but said he needed to talk to me. Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet him for coffee the next day. When we met, Derek looked nervous and uncomfortable. After some awkward small talk, he dropped a bombshell. Apparently, Chloe isn't pregnant. Derek found out she had been lying about the pregnancy to pressure everyone into supporting the rushed wedding. He was devastated and confused. As I sat there, stunned, Derek continued to open up. He revealed that Chloe had been exaggerating his financial situation to our parents. While he does make decent money as a freelance web developer, he's not nearly as well off as Chloe had made him out to be. In fact, he said he'd been feeling overwhelmed by Chloe's expensive tastes and grand plans for their future. Derek went on to share more details about their relationship. He admitted that things had moved very quickly and that he'd been swept up in the whirlwind romance. But now, he was starting to see red flags he'd previously ignored. He mentioned Chloe's tendency to exaggerate or lie to get her way, her impulsive spending habits, and her expectation that others, namely him or her family, would always bail her out. I felt a mix of emotions, vindication, anger at Chloe's manipulation, but also sadness for Derek and concern for my sister's mental state. Part of me wondered if I should have seen this coming, given Chloe's past behavior. Derek said he's seriously rethinking the relationship and wanted to apologize for his part in pressuring me about the wedding. He seemed genuinely remorseful and said he's realizing there's a lot about Chloe he doesn't know. I thanked Derek for his honesty and told him I don't blame him for Chloe's actions. We talked for a while longer, and I found myself offering him advice on setting boundaries and taking care of his own mental health, things I've been working on myself throughout this ordeal. After the meeting with Derek, I was torn about what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to confront Chloe directly, but I knew that would likely backfire. After much thought, I decided to tell my parents. I invited them over for dinner, wanting to have this conversation face to face. When I told them what Derek had shared, they were shocked and hurt. Mom broke down crying, saying she doesn't know where they went wrong with Chloe. Dad just sat there, looking defeated. We had a long, emotional conversation about Chloe's behavior over the years. For the first time, my parents seemed to really hear my perspective on how their enabling had affected both Chloe and our family dynamics. It wasn't an easy discussion, but it felt like a necessary one. The next day, Chloe found out that Derek had talked to me and that I'd told our parents. I'm not sure how she found out, maybe Derek told her, or perhaps our parents confronted her. Either way, she was furious. She's been sending me a barrage of angry texts, accusing me of turning everyone against her and ruining her life. Some of the messages are hurtful, bringing up old childhood insecurities and twisting shared memories. Others are more manipulative, swinging between guilt-tripping and empty apologies. I've been trying not to engage, but it's hard not to be affected by her words. I'm still processing everything. While I feel relieved that the truth is out, I'm worried about the long-term impact on our family dynamics. I've suggested family counseling to my parents, but they're hesitant. Dad seems to think we can work things out on our own, while Mom is still in a state of shock and denial. For now, I'm taking some time for myself and limiting contact with Chloe. I've blocked her number temporarily, needing some space from her emotional outbursts. I feel guilty about it, but my therapist, yes, I finally started seeing one, assures me it's okay to set boundaries. I'll update again if anything significant happens. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Update 3. It's been about a month since my last update, and things have somewhat settled, though not in a way I ever expected. After the revelation about Chloe's lies, our family went through a turbulent few weeks. My parents were devastated and finally seemed to realize the extent of Chloe's manipulative behavior. They've started to acknowledge their role in enabling her over the years. Derek ended his relationship with Chloe. He reached out to me again to let me know and to thank me for my honesty. He said the whole experience was a wake-up call for him about rushing into relationships. We had a good talk, and I wished him well. It was a bittersweet moment. While I was glad he was making a healthy decision for himself, I couldn't help but worry about how Chloe would react. As for Chloe, she initially lashed out at everyone, blaming us for ruining her life. She sent a flurry of angry messages to the whole family and even posted some nasty things on social media. But after a week of silent treatment from the whole family, she reached out to our parents. From what they've told me, she broke down and admitted to her lies, saying she felt trapped and desperate to have the wedding of her dreams. Apparently, she's been struggling with depression and anxiety for years but has been hiding it behind a facade of carefree spontaneity. While this doesn't excuse her actions, it does provide some context. My parents have taken a firmer stance with Chloe. They've cut off her financial support and told her she needs to take responsibility for her life. They've offered to help her find a therapist, but made it clear that she needs to make real changes. It's been hard for them, especially Mom, but I'm proud of them for finally setting some boundaries. Chloe sent me a long email apologizing for her behavior. She explained that she's always felt like she was living in my shadow, that while I was the smart, responsible one, she was just the fun, pretty one. She said she's realizing now how much damage her actions have caused and that she wants to make amends. While part of me appreciates the gesture, I'm not ready to forgive and forget. I responded briefly, acknowledging her apology but explaining that I need time and space to process everything. I also encouraged her to continue with therapy and focus on her own healing. The extended family has mostly backed off after learning the truth. A few have reached out to apologize for pressuring me earlier. Aunt Susan, who was one of the most vocal critics, sent a particularly nice note admitting she had jumped to conclusions without knowing the full story. As for me, this whole experience has been eye-opening. I've continued with therapy, working through my feelings about my family dynamics and learning to set healthier boundaries. I'm also reevaluating other relationships in my life, realizing that I've had a tendency to take on other people's problems as my own. My parents and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. They've apologized for pressuring me and have promised to respect my financial decisions in the future. We're taking small steps, like having weekly dinners together where we make a point to really listen to each other. At work, things have improved as the family stress has lessened. My boss commented on my improved focus and even hinted at a potential promotion in the near future. It's a reminder that taking care of my mental health has positive ripple effects in all areas of my life. While the situation with Chloe is far from resolved, I feel like our family is finally confronting long-standing issues. It's painful, but I hope it leads to healthier relationships in the long run. I'm learning that it's okay to love my family while also maintaining boundaries and prioritizing my own well-being. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future and will continue to prioritize my well-being as we navigate this new family dynamic.